I'm 67 with $870,000 in a 401k, $120,000 in an IRA, and a $2,200 monthly Social Security check. What is my retirement budget? Welcome back to Money Not Math episode 172, where we break down complex retirement questions into clear, actionable insights so you can retire with confidence, not confusion. Today, we're diving into a real life style question that many people your age are asking as they approach retirement. The question is, what is my retirement budget? On the surface, it seems like a simple math problem, but as you'll hear today, designing a retirement income strategy is about much more than dividing your savings by the years you hope to live. We're going to walk through a hypothetical analysis to show how someone in this situation might think through retirement spending strategies, asset allocation decisions, and how the mix of stocks, bonds, and cash affects both your income and your peace of mind, tax planning opportunities like Roth conversions that can meaningfully impact your retirement income and long-term tax bill, long-term care considerations, because even a strong nest egg can be weakened without the plan for healthcare needs later in life. My goal today is not to give advice. Everyone's situation is unique. Instead, I want to help you see how these different pieces fit together so you can start asking the right questions about your own retirement strategy. And hopefully, if you don't have someone already, find someone you can trust to help you walk through retirement confidently. With that, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So if you are listening to this episode rather than watching it, hopefully I cover the information well enough. But I would definitely encourage you to find a video somewhere to follow up and get more value out of it. So here's a quick overview. Like I said, this person is 67 with $990,000 saved. 870,000 is there in a 401k. $120,000 is an IRA, which is very important to understand. Both of those are tax deferred accounts, meaning they did not pay taxes into those accounts and on that growth while they're working. So they will owe taxes on that income in retirement, which could impact their Social Security income and their Medicare costs, plus any legacy they leave behind from tax deferred accounts. Their heirs will owe income on that money, and inherited IRAs now they have 10 years to spend that money. That's not what this episode is about, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but all those things do matter when it comes to tax deferred accounts. As far as income, they have $2,200 per month from their Social Security. So let's jump into the analysis. We are looking at just their proposed plan where they're 67 years old. We're assuming their long-term care costs. So the average long-term care, so there's three different types. There's assisted living, in-home care, nursing home. Assisted living is the cheapest. Nursing home is the most expensive. In-home care is the most common. But it kind of, just depends. So for this example, I'm using assisted living as the average cost, and this is today's dollars, 70,800 across the United States. Every year that gets more expensive. So that's for the last 3 years of this person's retirement. So when they're 93, 94, 95, because we're planning out to 95 years old. And we are just using a basic 60-40, 60% stocks, 40% bonds and cash asset allocation portfolio. No Social Security strategy because they're assuming they're already retired with already a Social Security check of 2,200. No tax strategy yet. And they're using an inflation adjusted spending strategy, meaning figuring out what they can spend this year, then each year just increasing to keep up with inflation. If that was the case in this hypothetical situation, their retirement monthly expenses or their retirement monthly income after taxes could be $4,420. $2,200 from their Social Security, $2,220 from their 401k after taxes or IRA, and that would get them an 80% probability of success with a median ending portfolio of $941,072. Now, the reason why we're aiming for 80% probability of success is because we want to maximize your retirement lifestyle without running out of money before we run out of breath. So if we have 100% confidence, we're probably not enjoying retirement enough. If we have below 70% confidence, we're getting a little too close to potentially running out of money. So that's where we find 80% is a nice median that allows us to adjust as we go. If we get over 90, you're going to have more permission to spend more money. If we get over 70, we might need to tighten the belt a little bit. So if all you care about is what's my budget with no additional planning, boom, video's over. There's your answer, $4,420. But if you do care about maximizing your retirement lifestyle, maximizing your legacy, maximizing your ability to not run out of money before you run out of breath, and really optimizing your retirement for your choices and your lifestyle and what you want to get out of it, I'm going to go into more details here that can make those impacts. All right, so we're going to go into each one of these variables and keep in mind there are more to be considered, like annuities, long-term care insurance, things like that, that we aren't going to go into in depth in this video, but those are additional considerations that could stack. All right, so let's go through each of these variables one by one and show the impacts they could have on your potential retirement for this person's hypothetical situation. So first and foremost, long-term care. All right. Some people don't worry about long-term care. They know it's a reality. 70% of people experience a long-term care experience in retirement. 30% are fortunate not to have to. But I know some of my clients have seen their parents go through long-term care for so long that they would have needed millions upon millions to afford it. So they're like, hey, if it happens, sorry, kids, your inheritance is going to be smaller, but hopefully it doesn't. We want to maximize their lifestyle today. They want to experience while they're still alive as much as they can with their kids and grandkids. On the other side, so they don't worry about long-term care. We just don't account for it. And that's their choice. I can't make you do anything. On the other side, maybe you have a lot of long-term care. If you have 6 years of long-term care instead of 3, all of a sudden your plan could be ruined, right? So that's just a harsh reality of long-term care. It's really difficult to plan around due to one, the cost of long-term care insurance, two, the cost of long-term care treatment, right? Assisted living, in-home care, nursing home. Those prices are skyrocketing every year. And three, just we don't know what your future holds. We don't know if you're going to slip and fall on a sidewalk. We don't know if you're going to unfortunately get dementia like my grandmothers did. We don't know what the future holds from a life or from a health standpoint. So long-term care is one of the most challenging things to plan around. So, but it's really important to be aware of what your options are so you get to make decisions. So that's the first one. Okay. If we just don't plan if we don't plan around long-term care, this person's probability of success is going to go from 80% to 97 because we're no longer assuming it's at the end of the road. So they could obviously spend more than $4,420. Their median retirement ending portfolio goes from 941,000 to almost 1.8 million. Massive difference, right? That's the cost of long-term care at the end of this person's retirement is about $800,000 over 3 years because of the rising costs down the road. Keep in mind, you not only have to pay for long-term care, you have to take that money out of tax-deferred accounts, which increase your tax rates, increase your Medicare costs, increase your Social Security taxes. There's more than one cost to increasing taxable income in retirement. All right. So on the other side, what if they, instead of 3 years of long-term care, they have 6? Now you're going to see a probability of success go from 80% down to 55, and that's the warning zone, right? Now their median ending portfolio goes from 941,000 to about 150,000. That's a big difference. So that's the first variable we have to discuss with any of our clients, or one of the many important ones is what is our long-term care strategy? All right. The next one is planning. All right, I'll put that back to 3 years to keep all things equal, or just do one variable at a time. What's our planning horizon? All right, I start out with 95 because if you're 67 years old today and you're a male, according to the Social Security Administration website, your life expectancy is 85. If you're a female, it's 87. But we don't know for sure how long you're going to live, and those are just averages. If you're more than above average health, hopefully you'll live longer. If you're below average, hopefully you'll get there, right? But generally speaking, I would prefer to plan for my clients to live longer than expected rather than not long enough so that we can avoid the number one fear in retirement of running out of money before you run out of breath. But that is something we can discuss, right? If you are like, hey, I'm 67, I'm a woman, my life expectancy is 87, let's just plan for that. If I'm fortunate enough to live longer, great, we'll figure it out then. Okay, that's your choice. And this is the impact that'll make. If we go from 95 to 87, your probability of success goes from 80% to 94%. That's a big difference. If you're a man, saying the same thing, going down to 85, sorry, men, we live shorter than women. Genetics, health, poor choices, who knows? That's going to increase your probability of success even more from 80% to 96, with your median ending portfolio going from 941,000 to 1.1 million. All right. So that can make a big difference is how long of a time horizon are we going to plan for in your retirement? All right. So let's reset that one. And let's move on to asset allocation. Like I said, I'm currently using a moderate 60-40 portfolio, 60% cash, 40% bonds and fixed income. What if we go preservation? What if you're one of the people who gets terrified by the news, terrified by what your friends are telling you, and you just hate market volatility? Because that's what we're told, right? Market volatility is terrible. We have to avoid it. So this preservation portfolio is 20% equity, 80% fixed income and bonds. Now your probability of success drops way down from 80% to 31. Your median ending portfolio goes from 941,000 to zero. And that might sound weird because you're like, well, why is that? I'm avoiding market volatility. The problem is inflation. You're 67 years old today, living to 95 at simply 3.5% inflation. Almost everything that you buy today is going to be 2.5 times more expensive or 3 times more expensive by the time you pass away. So we actually have to increase your income and increase your assets to maintain your lifestyle in retirement. On the flip side, keep in mind a couple years ago, inflation was 8, 9%. Now you're talking everything doubling in price almost every 9 years rather than every 20 years. That can get expensive. So that's where asset allocation is really important. On the other side, what if we go most aggressive? Now you're talking about maybe a 90% stocks, 10% bonds, and fixed income. Now your probability of success goes from 80% to 86, which is great, but you have to be really good at ignoring the news. Because the more stocks and equity you own, on good years, they'll go up more. On bad years, they'll go down more, right? So do you have an income reserve strategy built or a safety net built to withstand market volatility? And where's that balance? Everyone needs to find what's best for them. For our clients, we really like to build an income reserve strategy so that they have 5 or 6 years of income protected and insulated from market volatility. And then we can allocate the rest towards fighting inflation, obviously, while accounting for personal goals and lifestyle choices and things like that. But it's important to find a balance. We probably shouldn't be all the way in a preservation portfolio, and we probably shouldn't be all the way in the most aggressive 90 to 100% equity in retirement. All right, so there's a balance and there's a middle ground that can be met while still optimizing your retirement experience. All right, let's reset and get back to normal here. We're not going to go into Social Security because this person assumed in this hypothetical situation they already retired, but Social Security is a massive decision on when and how you take it, especially if you're married. Tax strategy. So I won't dive into it, but basically, or I'll bring you over there. So the tax strategy is it recommends 12% are doing Roth conversions up to the 12% tax bracket. And by doing that, the proposed strategy with Roth conversion of the 12% tax bracket to avoid RMDs and forced RMDs later on, which can force higher Medicare costs and force higher Social Security taxes, is going to leave to about 420,000 more tax adjusted ending assets by doing Roth conversions up to the 12% bracket. You're going to pay about 172,000 less in taxes in this person's hypothetical lifetime. And they're going to have about 214,000 more withdrawals from tax deferred accounts. So they're actually taking more money from tax deferred accounts and still paying less taxes by staying below the 12% ordinary income tax bracket. And from a probability of success standpoint, by doing Roth conversions up to the 12% tax bracket, it's going to adjust their probability of success from 80% to 86%. So a very similar impact as going from a 60-40 portfolio to a 90-10 portfolio. Doing Roth conversions to the 12% tax bracket makes a big difference for this person, both in how much money they can leave behind from 941,000 to 1.4 million. Probability of success being 80% to 86% if they don't increase their income. So that's a very important one. Now let's reset. And last but not least, the retirement spending strategy. So, like I said, this person's assuming, because I think most people without additional planning just start out with what can I spend this year, whether it's the 4% rule, 3% rule, 5% rule, whatever rule they're using, whatever math they did, and then they adjust each year for inflation to try to just maintain their lifestyle. I don't believe in that. For most of my clients, I encourage them to follow what's called the retirement spending smile, which is based on historical data that says most people, when they enter retirement, they're the youngest and most excited they're ever going to be ever again in retirement, and they want to do the most stuff, whether it's travel the world, visit their friends and family, buy a new retirement home, whatever it might be. And then as they age, they do less and spend less. And then as they age more, they get a lot more medical costs. So that's where the retirement spending smile comes to account. It still adjusts for inflation, but it also adjusts for lifestyle stages as well. So the retirement spending smile, rather than inflation adjust, is going to make a big impact, going from 80% probability of success to 93, going from 941,000 median ending portfolio to almost 1.5 million. So as you can see, each one of these individual levers or variables or choices that we make has a big impact on your potential retirement budget or your potential retirement experience. Now let's put them all together and see what's the most conservative retirement strategy versus the most aggressive, right? Basically, the no plan strategy is $4,420 per month budget after tax. The most conservative strategy is we're going to cover for 3 years long-term care duration. And I guess we could even get more conservative and we could go 5 or 6 years long-term care planning. We're going to do a preservation portfolio, no tax strategy, leaving inflation adjusted retirement spending. And that budget to have 80% probability of success is about $3,620 per month, which is about $800 less than basically the no planning strategy. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, what's the most aggressive strategy we could have? So this is, we are only going to plan to 85 because maybe it's a male or a female that thinks they'll live to 85. We aren't going to worry about long-term care. We're going to have an aggressive asset allocation of 90% stocks, 10% bonds, and fixed income. We're going to do Roth conversions up to the 12% ordinary income tax bracket. And we're going to follow a retirement spending SMILE strategy of spending rather than inflation adjusted. That can produce $7,200 per month of spending. That's almost $3,000 per month more spending than no planning at all, right? So on one end, most conservative, we're looking at 3,620. On the most aggressive, we're looking at 7,200. Now, most people, I probably would advocate not to be on either end of the spectrum. You and everyone else you know probably falls somewhere in the middle, but of what your budget could be. But without proper planning with a fiduciary financial advisor that you can trust, how do you know for sure what it is you should be starting at and maintaining? And the important thing with that is retirement planning is not just a build to one strategy and set it, forget it. We review this at least once, if not 2 or 3 times a year with all of our clients, and we're constantly updating based on what's happening in their lives and with their portfolios and what they're experiencing overall. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing. I know I went through a lot of math and hypothetical situations there, but hopefully this example shows the wide variety of incomes and retirement experiences this hypothetical person could experience based on their planning or lack thereof. With monthly incomes as low as $3,620 per month and as high as $7,200 per month, that's a $3,580 per month difference, leading to a very, very different retirement experience. That is why I strongly encourage you to find a fiduciary financial advisor you can trust to walk alongside you through your retirement journey. If you don't have one already, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you to determine if we would be a good fit or if I can connect you with someone else who is at no cost. Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to today's Money Not Math episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my page and please help me provide more value to more people like you by sharing with a friend or sharing it on your social media page and commenting with a question or a thought. I love answering you guys' specific questions and questions or thoughts rather than just coming up with hypothetical things that I think might be valuable. Or if you would like to ask me a question privately or schedule a meeting, please message me directly on the platform you are on or call me at 218-686-3170. Disclaimer, this content is not legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult a qualified professional regarding your personal situation. Thank you so much again for your time and hope you have a wonderful day. And bye.